Hello everybody, we are going to be talking about some teams that are disappointing at this point in the season. Maybe as of late things aren't going for them, in their favor, whatever the case may be. Plenty of teams to pick here, but I just kind of saw a few that I wanted to talk about, and we're going to do that. Now, before we start though, please make sure to subscribe if you're new. Now let's get into it. The first team we have is the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they are 4-4-2, 10 games played, 10 points. Nothing that is outright awful, but they have lost 5 straight. They are 0-4-1 in that time. Currently, they are 7th in the Metro Division and are allowing the 4th highest shots against per 60 in the league in all situations. I don't really think they're giving up a lot of scoring chances, but it doesn't bode well for you if you are giving up a lot of shots, especially if it does transition to those being quality shots. I would have to dig a little bit deeper into that. It is early in the year, but I will say them being 7th is not a good thing considering a few things. One, the Metro is really good. You look at teams like Carolina, New York, the Rangers that is. Those are 2 teams that you expected to be playoff teams, and then maybe even a playoff contender. More so maybe the Rangers if Shesterkin's on a roll, but the Canes are definitely a team capable of going on a run. But on top of that, you have teams like the Devils that are better than expected, and the Flyers, which are off to a hot start this year. I'm not saying that this is going to be the end-all be-all for Pittsburgh. 10 games into the year, they still have 72 games left to play, so there's still plenty of time to get back in the thick of it, as they're really not out of the mix right now, but they are in a spot right now where they would not be in the playoffs if the season was over today. And I would say that with this division having some teams that might be a little bit better than years past, you probably should, worry a little bit more compared to some other divisions. Maybe towards the deadline you make some moves to try to bolster this roster. I don't know if they could. I'd have to look at their cap. Probably have to be cap strapped at the moment. But in general, yeah, Pittsburgh as of late kind of disappointing, and they're on pace for an 81-point season, which for the Penguins standards is not something that would be, acceptable or okay. Moving on to another team, we have the St. Louis Blues. The Blues started the year undefeated through 3 games, and now they have lost 5 straight, all in regulation. And yeah, they're 3-5-0, 8 games played, 6 points. You think to the start of the year, people were saying, oh my gosh, this is such a great start for the Blues. And, the season just flips on its head just like that, so quick for teams. And as of right now, they're not on pace for even a point per game in the standings, or a point for each game in the standings. I should say that for them, they are currently 7th in the Central. I don't think that's as concerning as some other divisions, but I do think Colorado takes up a spot, Nashville, Minnesota, Winnipeg, the list goes on and on a little bit, to the extent that all these teams do have some realistic hope of making the playoffs. I would say for them, it is a little bit concerning. The big thing here being that they've allowed 25 goals in that stretch. I didn't go back through at every game to see what was an empty net goal, but regardless of, unless you allowed 20 empty net goals or something like that in this stretch, you lose 5 games in a row, you allow 25 goals in that span. That is not acceptable. That's not going to be able to work, and they know that. I think for them, though, the good news is, I guess you could say it's good news, Chicago, the Blackhawks, have started off the year a little bit harder than expected. You'd have to imagine that the Hawks would, fall off a little bit. Arizona's not that great of a team. At least they shouldn't be that great of a team by the end of the year. So you might get some, luck there where those 2 teams are towards the bottom, and then you can focus more on the guys that are around you or above you. St. Louis, a team that, even in my comments at the end of the season and in the offseason and season previews, people said this is a team that could be a dark horse to win the Stanley Cup. They could knock off Colorado. As of right now, they wouldn't be in a position to do so, and for them, they have to get back on the win streak and just kind of get going. But yeah, disappointing. Through 8 games, they've got 3 wins, so that is that there. As for the final team, there's plenty of other teams I could have picked here, but Toronto, the Maple Leafs, they are 4-4-2 in 10 games played, 10 points. So again, kind of like Pittsburgh, on pace for 82 points this season. They have lost 4 straight. They are 0-2-2. Currently 7th in the Atlantic Division. The biggest thing here, yes, they did pick up 2 points in that span, but the biggest thing here is that they lost to the Sharks and the Ducks in overtime in both of those games, where they were able to pick up some overtime points. Anaheim I think might still be, or at least was yesterday before their win. They were dead last in the league for overall standings. Now, I didn't go by points percentage, I just kind of went by points through games played. But you look at the Ducks, and they are towards the bottom of the barrel right now. And then San Jose, basically in that same company. Erik Karlsson is just going off this year again, which is so cool to see. But in general, the Sharks are not winning a ton of games. So for Toronto to kind of go out through here, and especially the past 4 games, drop 2 games there that could be 4 points instead of 2 points for themselves, that is frustrating for them. Also, it's just kind of bad news because you could probably argue the Atlantic is the deepest division in the sense of, I would say, there's probably 6 teams within the Atlantic that would say we have somewhat realistic expectations of making the playoffs. Buffalo's off to a hot start. I know they do it every year, but they are off to a hot start. I don't know if that pace would continue, but if that was the case, then you're looking at just about everybody being in the mix. I know Montreal is another team we expect to be bad this year, or at least miss the playoffs. But in general, this is not a gimme division. You got to earn everything that you can get. The Bruins are off to a hot start. You know, Tampa Bay has had some injuries, or will have some injuries that are going to take some time to heal up. All around, you know, for a division like this, you probably wouldn't want to take your foot off the gas at any point. And you can't just say, well, you know, we dropped some points here, it's all right. I don't want to seem like I'm overstepping and saying, oh, you have to freak out. But the Atlantic being how it is as of this season, this is the type of year that if you miss the playoffs, start looking back at the calendar and saying, man, I wish we would have got that win over the Sharks. I wish we got that win over the Ducks. And that's kind of where you're at in the state. Are there other teams? Yeah, sure. I mean, Ottawa, we could talk about them. I think they're on a losing streak. Nothing crazy. I think it's 3 games. You know, Vancouver has not started out the year very well. That's pretty disappointing. But, you know, these teams have lost some games as of late. And I would say had pretty decent expectations going into this season. But let me know some teams that you think are disappointing, especially as of late, down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night, and you go have hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.